Welcome to Integrated. This is the podcast where we seek to bridge the gap between the intellect and the will so that we can grow as disciples of Christ, surrendering all that we are and all that we have to the truth. Hey guys, my name is Angela Erickson. Thank you for joining me today on this live stream on Integrated. Yes, Jason, I see you. Thank you for joining today. I'm glad you're waiting. I'm very nervous about doing this stream in particular. And I'm going to be honest with you. I've been promising to talk about some of these things for a long time, and there have been a few reasons I haven't. One, because especially after my article in Crisis got published about feminism, there was like a big response, which I wasn't really expecting, but I had people on all sides that were upset with me and came after me a little bit. Which that part isn't such a big deal to me, to be honest. You publish something, you expect some pushback, and that's fine. But there were certain themes that I was seeing, and there were certain things that transpired behind the scenes. And to be honest, I'm just not somebody that's reactionary when it comes to the things I'm putting out. That's not the kind of person I am. There are plenty of people who are more than happy to just jump on and react to something right after they hear it. And that's just not the kind of content I want to create. There's more than enough of that out there. And so that's part of it. I really like to sit and digest what it is that I'm seeing. That's why you don't see me jumping on with the latest church gossip. That's why you don't see me coming on here every time something happens in the church that is discouraging or disparaging. I really want to sit with what's going on, wait until the facts are revealed before I even maybe consider saying anything about it. The same is true in my personal life. When something happens, I generally sit with it for a while before I say anything at all about it. So there are a lot of things that I just haven't talked about publicly, because when this stuff came out, when I had this article published, it actually affected relationships of mine behind the scenes, which I wasn't expecting. And so I've just been sitting with that. Hey, thanks for joining, Juan. Thanks for joining today. So anyway, for those of you who have been wondering what the heck this is that I'm going to talk about, the genesis was the article that I published in Crisis. That was part of it. But there are layers to that, and I'm not bringing this all up to sort of dredge up old issues. That's not my point. I just want to explain why I'm talking about it now instead of why I brought it up at the beginning, right when it all went down. So I guess long story short, my goal is not to sort of prolong or like bring things back up needlessly. I thought it would be a good time to talk about it because I'm just continuing to see some of the same issues persist within, especially trad Catholic Twitter world, which, take that for what it is. I just am seeing some concerning themes. And so I want to talk about what I am seeing. And I'm sure after this, people will label me a feminist or something, or that I'm not traddy enough. I'm not a real traditionalist. And that's fine. I've come to accept that there are people out there who are going to think I'm never going to be traditional enough. And then there are going to be other people who think I'm too much of a traditionalist and I'm rigid or something. Yes, Shelby, you're right. I'm coming out as a feminist today. Oh, goodness gracious. Watch, someone's going to clip that and I'll be done. I'll be done from here. So anyway, sorry for the long introduction. I am really nervous to talk about some of these things because, like I said, this has impacted my private life and relationships that I had. This isn't a feminist screed. It is a screed on feminism somewhat. Really, it's about femininity and the patriarchy properly ordered. And I think this is a really important conversation when we're talking about integration. What does it mean to live in right relationship with one another? Now, it was funny when my article got published because it was about reclaiming femininity and rejecting feminism. And I was accused of being a feminist for talking about how feminism is a problem, which was interesting. And then on the other side of things, I had people like Emily Zanotti talking about how hypocritical I was for publishing this because I was profiting and working and whatever. Can I be really clear about something? Stay-at-home moms are allowed to have hobbies. They're allowed to write and do creative things when their children are sleeping or preoccupied. My life as a stay-at-home mom that homeschools my children, I do plenty and spend plenty of time with my children. They are not wanting for attention. My house is not wanting for help. My husband gets a nice dinner almost every night. Sometimes he has to help, but that's life. We have 5 small children. But we spend time together. Stay-at-home moms are allowed to like express themselves and do other things other than homemaking. I think it's ridiculous that we even have to say that. Thank you. um, Yes, exactly. You know what? Actually, Supreme Crusader, my husband is the reason I have a podcast. So it's funny you say that you're writing here that I don't have my husband's permission. He's actually the reason that I started a podcast. He thought that it would be something I would do well at, and he thought that I had things to share that maybe other people would enjoy. So that being said, let's talk about whether or not it is feminist to do things like have a podcast. Obviously, I'm going to argue not. Here's some things that I think are really often overlooked in this conversation. People talk about history, and women historically haven't worked, I guess, which is actually not true. You see, even in the Proverbs 31 woman, she works and is bringing an income, so to speak, into our home. She's involved economically. Included in the description is a great video that Tim Flanders did over on the Meaning of Catholic talking about this. So that's part of it. I'm not saying that women should be working outside of the home. I'm not saying that women should be spending more time working than at home with their children, raising and nurturing their children. I would never say that. That's something I've explicitly talked against many, many times. And yet here I am having to defend having a hobby, which is ridiculous. And do I make money doing this? No. Do I anticipate I mean, yes, there are people who support my work and you guys are amazing, but I'm not earning a profit. And occasionally writing a piece for a publication when I've written it late at night while my kids are asleep, I don't see that as a problem. That's not interfering with motherhood in any capacity. Not that it's really any of your business, if whatever. I just think it's ridiculous that people would accuse me of being a feminist because I'm doing things outside of homeschooling and baking bread and doing all the things that I do every single day. So that's one thing. And Margot, you're right. Like, I don't have to defend myself. This actually is not so much about me. I'm seeing this really disturbing trend of men in traditional Catholicism who treat women in a very Aristotelian and puritanical way that does treat women as second-class citizens. There's a reason, like feminism, it didn't just grow in a vacuum by itself. There were reasons women were rejecting the status quo or having a sense of being perceived as lesser than. And I think we do see that. I think often women are written off as being emotional. For example, if we defend our work, we're accused of being overly emotional, hysterical. We are accused of not being able to take criticism well. But if a man defends his work, it's very obvious to me that usually they're praised for not taking shit from anybody. Pardon the language, but that's the truth. And any woman who has been in this sort of field or has had to take fire knows that. And it's usually men who are the ones saying, like, if you can't handle it, don't do it. But they never say that to men who are also defending their work. I think it's a double standard. And I see that happening more in the trad sect of Catholicism who think that women that are merely talking about their faith, that they're somehow speaking in authority over people, and I think that needs to be addressed. What does it mean to have authority? I think we point to scripture all the time, and I don't think I feel like my understanding of authority, and God forgive me if I'm wrong, but it has to do with spiritual authority. It's not about me presenting my ideas on the faith, which have I don't talk about heresy. I've never promoted heresy that I know of. Um, and if I have, God forgive me and correct me. I'm not kidding. Please forgive me and correct me. I think we should hold that standard, male or female. There are plenty of males doing work in the Catholic world who are spouting heresy, and yet no one's looking at them and saying, "Well, you're not allowed to speak because you don't have authority." Uh, we have to talk about authority with an understanding that it's about having spiritual authority. So I'm not claiming to have spiritual authority over anyone who is coming and listening to my work. In fact, you're not required to listen to my work. You're not required to obey anything that I say. Uh, the people who have authority over you and can exercise authority over you are husbands, your parents if you are not married, and your priest, your bishop, the pope, going all the way up. Those are the people who have authority. Um, so this isn't a gendered issue in that sense of like I'm claiming authority over you by having a podcast. That's really irrational. That's fallacious thinking. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I find it weird that that's where men's brains go sometimes. Um, and also I want to address a comment that I saw regarding the meaning of Catholic since I started to have a presence there. Um, there was a comment at one point expressing disappointment that I had joined the team over at the meeting of Catholic because it wasn't what this man envisioned for like a proper ecclesia domestica, which is really weird because as far as I understand, most homes have a mother. Like a properly ordered home has a mother. So there is feminine influence. In fact, women are meant to be the heart of the home, right? And so, first of all, that's just part of it. But second, um, if the meaning of Catholic or just Catholic culture in general, if we're trying to establish, grow, cultivate more Catholic culture, women have a role to play in that. Like we women are like you see even again Proverbs 31. The woman is wise, right? There's something that women have to offer. Jesus revealed himself to women. Mary Magdalene was the apostle to the apostles. She's the one that proclaimed the good news about his resurrection first. She was the first one to know, apart from probably Our Lady. And Our Lady is the queen of heaven and earth. And what do we know about the queen in the Davidic kingdom? She rules, right? Like, yes, the son is ruling, but it's not his wife that is the equal ruler. It's actually his mother. Anyway, it's just biblically doesn't make sense. Historically, you have the saints going to the popes, correcting them. You have the saints creating convents, monasteries, and doing some degree of teaching. I think of the Samaritan woman at the well. If she had not gone back into Samaria and proclaimed the good news, what if people had just been like, "You're a woman. You shouldn't be talking at all. You shouldn't be sharing the good news with us at all." And she went out and converted a whole town, and they welcomed Jesus in and were converted. Pretty amazing to me. So scripturally, that doesn't make sense. Traditionally, in terms of historical context, yes, women have always worked. Okay, they were always gardening, they were baking bread, they were sharing goods and services, they were bartering, they were assisting others. It's not like a woman can't do all the things. We can't cook, bake, wash laundry, sew, and make clothes. Like we couldn't do all of these things on our own. We had to collaborate. We had to work with people. We had to barter and sell and grow gardens and sell that stuff. That's always been a part of living. But but not only that, here's something that's really different about being a modern woman. We have a lot of devices and machines that help us now that have never been around. We have more free time than ever before. I don't have to go out and hand wash all my stuff. I throw it in a laundry basket, and then I bring it to the laundry room and I throw it in a washer. That is that would have been unheard of. Women just wouldn't have had the time to enjoy these other endeavors. And I think that's something that's really overlooked in this conversation too. Um, like, I don't know. I just think it's really weird that, like, we haven't talked about that. Um, and Margot, yes, of course you should be a part of, Mass of the Ages, especially you're not married and you don't have kids. So it makes sense that you would work to provide a living for yourself. Um, And I do think chivalry has gone by the wayside. And yeah, if a woman gets publicly berated, should a man speak up? Absolutely. I think it's actually really effeminate the way that I've seen men going after women for no reason. It's very weird to me. Like, it's so weird watching some of these influencers who are going after women for what? And you know what? I've just accepted I don't have social currency. So it's fine if I get thrown under the bus, because I can't, like, bring on more listeners and things like that to different people. I don't have the connections that other people have. That's fine. Throw me under the bus, but can we have an honest conversation about women in this space? Because it's not hysterical for women to just, like, defend our work and have emotions. In fact, I think part of the problem is that so often we forget that emotions are human and God created those emotions. They need to be properly ordered and directed. They need to coincide with the intellect. That's true. Um, we can't live our lives based on emotion. We can't make decisions based on emotion. But our feelings actually tell us, especially if we're properly formed, they can guide our intuitions very, very well when something is off. So, anyway, I think those are some of the things that I wanted to address. This issue of authority, the role of women in the church and politics. Like, women have to have a place in this space. Like, there is no. My husband speaks for me, and like, when it comes to making decisions in our home, of course, he always has the final say, and that's a gift to me. It would be a heavy burden for me to carry, to have the mental load of doing all these other homemaking things and educating my children and doing all that stuff. And at the end of the day, and at the end of time, having to be held to account for that, like being responsible for it in the same capacity that my husband is. Like, that's the level of authority. Is It's not just authority, but it's responsibility and accountability. That will fall mostly to a large degree on the husband, of course, on the wife, but like, that's really serious. And I'm not ever going to say anything to denigrate that. What I am saying is that women do have a place at the table. They do have a place in politics, in terms of that very traditional understanding of the word, of it, affairs of the cities, like what's going on, because we live in relationship with one another. There are going to be things about homemaking, for example, that my husband is not going to be able to understand and talk about. And so that's something that I can talk about with women. But there are other things that I can talk about with men from a female perspective to help them understand some aspect of relationship better. And, like, we can have that conversation, and that's not me being an authority over a man. I just think that's so ridiculous. And so, all of that, my next question is, like, trad ink in general, so to speak. And I haven't necessarily defined that, what that is. But I think most of us know. It's a lot of the same traditional, quote unquote, talking heads that have sort of adopted this denigrating viewpoint of women. And there are many of them. I'm not gonna call out anybody. That's not what I want to do either. But to me, the whole thing is so tired. It's not edifying. It has really made me question. Like, I almost don't even want to talk about myself as a traditionalist anymore. Labels, I think, can be helpful. some people are opposed to labels. I'm not, actually. I think it can help to sort of see who you align with better. But I find that right now in the current state of like where traditionalism is, and this makes me go back to meaning or Mass of the Ages having that talk about rebranding traditionalism. Yeah, there's a problem going on in traditionalist circles. I'm not saying all traditionalists are bad. That's, again, I would like to think of myself as a traditionalist. But there is a growing number of disgruntled, seemingly men who spend a lot more time pointing fingers at all the problems in the church, all of their perceived problems in the church, real or imagined, instead of pointing the finger at themselves and focusing on growing in virtue. And I'm just at a place in my life right now for a multitude of factors where I'm just so done. Like, I'm exhausted. When I started my podcast, there was a small group of us that got together and we were like, what do we want to do with our podcasts? And we all agreed. We wanted to grow something. We wanted to build podcasts. We wanted to build a space in this Catholic world that was edifying, that left people growing in holiness and desiring that left people feeling edified. And I just don't see that very much right now. I see a lot of people spending time jumping on to talk about the latest controversy in the church and talking badly about other Catholic YouTubers and wasting their time hashing out the same old tired stuff. And I'm just over it. I would love to see more, and this is what I would like to do more of when time allows. But again, my vocation at home does come first. That's why I'm not publishing content all the time. And I'm not going to publish and create content just for the sake of creating content. I want to create stuff that is edifying and leaves people wanting to grow closer to our Lord. And that's what I want to see for this world of Catholic content creation. And I think we need to ask ourselves, are these people helping me grow in holiness? Are they helping me grow in virtue? Are they exemplifying virtue in any way? Do they spend more time offering commentary on people they disagree with than talking about catechesis and prayer and fighting those 7 deadly sins and growing in virtue? Are they being moderate in their manner of speaking? Are they being respectful, even of people that they disagree with? There are a lot of people that I just don't see that anymore. I don't watch Catholic YouTube anymore because I'm really tired of it. And I think it's really unfortunate, and long term, this trad inc Catholicism is going to push people away from the faith. I think it makes sense. Like, I understand we've had this push of hyper liberal, woke feminism chaos, anti-patriarchal chaos. And so the pendulum is swinging really, really hard in the other direction. And like so many things, there's an excess there. So we have to pull it back in to a moderate position, because usually, as they say, the truth lies somewhere in the middle, and there is absolute truth. So I'm not saying like there's not. There absolutely is. But I just think we need to recalibrate a little bit, and start focusing on the things that actually matter. Like, if your YouTube channel, your favorite YouTube channels, are on all the time, you have to ask yourself, are they spending appropriate time with their own family? Am I facilitating or encouraging by my participation in them perhaps even neglecting their family lives? Is it really necessary for me to be online all the time watching every single thing? Is that good for me? Or should I be present to my children and my family and like real life? Because I think part of the problem, especially since 2020, is that we're so disconnected. We live so much of our lives virtually. It's really easy to dehumanize people when we live in a mostly virtual world. and we kind of strip away at their dignity because we're not face to face anymore. We're not in actual relationship anymore. And so I think more than ever, we need to create not just online communities, but go back to actually creating communities that you see and touch and hug and like really interact with. I just think that would humanize us a lot more, remind us of our frailty and our fickleness. And hopefully, these communities would be beacons of light, beacons of Christ's love in our lives to keep us grounded. So, I guess that is my little screed for today, my diatribe, so to speak. I think women have a place in it, and I would love to see that embraced more in the Catholic, this corner of Catholic world. I think it's silly to pretend that women are claiming authority over you simply for existing and like talking. Um, it just doesn't make sense. I'm not claiming to have spiritual authority over you. I don't want spiritual authority over you. That's not my aim here at all. And women having hobbies shouldn't be a problem, especially if it's not interfering with their lives. And I think it's time for all of us to start examining our own lives and asking, is what I'm doing making me more holy? Am I striving for holiness in my daily life? And am I leading others to holiness, or am I leading them to live a virtual life on their computer and causing them more anxiety and discontentment in the church? Because if that's what Trad Inc. Catholic YouTube is going to be, I'm out. Like, I'm so out. I just want to help people love the Lord. I want people to love the Catholic Church and see it for what it is, as the bride of Christ. And I want to build communities where we are helping each other get to heaven. Like, that's what I think this should be about. So I'm not going to be posting content all the time. I'm living my life, going to splash pads with my kids and playing with them. And yeah, maybe I'll write an article once or twice a year after my kids go to bed or something. But I want to really live life, and I really want to encourage people to do the same thing, and really spend a little bit more time looking inwards and growing in holiness ourselves, than pointing at everything that's going wrong in the church right now, because we're not going to fix that unless we fix our own hearts first, right? Rend your hearts and not your garments, please. So with that, thank you so much for listening today. Please feel free to like, share, subscribe, and feel free to reach out to me. My email is angela@integratedangela.com. I'll put a little banner up here for you just so you can see that. You're welcome to email me and tell me what you think. Have you seen any of this? Is this something, or do you think that I'm just like totally making this up or something? I don't know. Feel free to email me, share your thoughts. That's fine. You can find me on Twitter, all of those things. But I would love to connect with you guys and start building a more, I don't know, like just a better community. I think we all start off that way. We all want to have these good communities, and sometimes things get lost along the way, especially. Yeah, I guess that's all that I'll say about that. But thanks so much for listening, you guys. God bless you, and I'll see you next time. I gotta find my outro. I always struggle with the outro. All right, God bless.